Hello, and welcome back to the podcast where you are invited for lighthearted conversations about things that matter as you seek to live your most meaningful, beautiful, and joyful life. I'm your host, Dr. Edie Wadsworth, and I hope you enjoy your stay here at the House of Joy. This episode is all about the key, really, to your mental and emotional resilience, the key to living a life that feels like it's overflowing, it's full, it's rich. We're going to talk about it today. This is episode 236 of the House of Joy podcast, and I am so grateful you're here. I'm going to make this statement, and I want you to really take it in. If you're sitting somewhere where you could write this down, write it down. If not, go back and write it down later. But I do believe this is true. Every emotion you're willing to process makes you stronger, healthier, freer. Every emotion you ignore, hide from, run from, react to, eat instead of feel, scroll instead of feel. Every emotion you're unwilling to process makes you weaker, less free, sicker, less joyful. And that, my friends, is literally the key to the universe. I really feel like, why don't they teach us this in school? So I'm going to tell you a couple stories that will illustrate this fact. First of all, I just got back from voting. My little town in Eastern Tennessee, you guys, it was probably double the people I have ever seen at the polls. I am so proud of my little town. I was like, you go, Bean Station. We vote at the little Bean Station library, and they had to, usually we just vote at the little end room of the library. They had to open up the whole thing. I was so proud of us. So go Bean Station. If you haven't voted yet, go vote. But this past weekend, I led a weekend together with my coaches. So as you know, I have two main programs, Life Mentoring School, where I coach women to rewrite their stories, to live with more energy, purpose, and joy. And then I coach coaches. So I train coaches. I train people to be coaches. I train Christian women to be life coaches. And we have about 380, I think, women that have gotten trained by us and certified in our tools that we use. Really what we do, honestly, is we help women of faith live out their faith. That's what we help you do. We help you live what you actually believe. And our coaches, about 120 of them, came and spent the weekend or the day with me on Saturday in Knoxville. And it was the most glorious thing. The teaching was insane, so deep, so rich, so healing, just incredible. And one of the things that I did during this event is I had I have a one-on-one coach, and I had her lead us through how she helps her clients process emotions. And then, if you can believe this, I decided to how should we call this? Replay her coaching me and leading me through processing my own emotion. What is wrong with my camera, y'all? There we go. There we are. I played it in front of all of my coaches. And you guys, if you ever thought to yourself, well, I bet that Dr. Edie has it all together, you should watch this session of me with my coach. When I first started the session with her, I said, I know we're supposed to record this like for training purposes for my coaches, but I'm feeling great today. So this might not be the best session for that. And literally within 6 minutes, I was sobbing. And it brought home to me this point so clearly. As women in midlife, as busy women who are taking care of so many things and shouldering so many things and carrying the emotional weight of so many things, there is so much in us that we are not processing. There's so much in us. Something will happen. Something will happen with our spouse. Something will happen with one of our kids, and it will create, strong emotions in us. And then we're like, I don't have time to deal with that right now. We just squash it down. We ignore ourselves or whatever. And then what often happens is then we become reactive in our lives, because it's kind of as if when you let all those emotions pile up, what happens is then the next thing that happens, you're so full up to the brim because you haven't extracted the wisdom and the gift that that emotion could be if you actually became aware of it and dealt with it and processed it. And so then you just become reactive because those emotions are going to make their way out one way or the other. The healthy way by you processing and moving through them, or the unhealthy way by you reacting in ways that you don't like. And what had happened to me is that is what I had done for too long. I had just let things pile up. And then I became pretty reactive, and I became reactive to my little Tommy boy. And it's easy to become reactive to a very adventurous, cantankerous, sometimes challenging, amazing 12-year-old. And I was becoming reactive and I didn't like it. And as soon as I started talking about it, I became so in touch with what I really want to think and feel about him, how I really want to show up for him. And what happens is especially when we're showing up in a way that we don't love, then we shame ourselves. So then it's very hard to figure out what the emotions are because we're afraid to look because we've kind of shamed ourselves, which is what I had done. And after I kind of acknowledged, like, oh, I've been showing up in a way that I don't love, that I'm not proud of. As soon as I was able to release the shame and acknowledge that, so much sadness came up for me. Sad for me, sad for Tom, sad that, I had sort of become reactive like this and that's not how I want to be or how I want to show up. And when I allowed the sadness to be there, I cried. I really felt it. If you were able to watch the session that I had when she was helping me process through it, I had so much heat in my chest and in my head. Shame often causes heat for people. And as was breathing through it and crying through it and working through it and getting it all out and saying all the things that my heart needed to say, it took about, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8, maybe 10 minutes for me to fully kind of work through it. And after I worked through it, I felt so relieved and I felt so capable. Like it kind of feels like you're cleaning out your mental and emotional closet. And then you feel like, okay, now, I'm ready for, to step back into my life and show up the way I want. Because one of the things that my coach pointed out, which I know to be true, is that when we have a lot of unprocessed emotion, unacknowledged feelings, when we've been ignoring ourselves, ladies, for too long, it's really draining so much of our energy and we don't realize it. It's like tabs being open on your computer and you don't realize that that's draining so much of your life's energy. And what you tend to feel when you do this as a regular practice, when you make it a regular practice to deal with what's going on in your life, to not ignore yourself, to acknowledge when you feel these emotions that you're like, oh, I don't even know why I feel so frustrated. I don't know why I feel this resentment. When you actually take the time to acknowledge what you're feeling and acknowledge the story that you're telling yourself about it so that if you want to, you can change it, so much energy opens up. So much creativity opens up in your life. There's so much more room in your life for what you want to create instead of feeling like you're so bogged down and so weighed down. What's weighing us down is a full backpack of unprocessed emotions, of unacknowledged hurt, grief, life. And it was just a good reminder to me because this is what I do for a living. How could it be that someone who does this and talks about it all the time would then allow for things to pile up for, a while? Yeah, because I'm human and because it's been a busy season for me. And so I had allowed things to pile up and it was then coming out in ways that I didn't like. I was reacting in ways that I didn't like instead of really taking time to respond the way I want to show up, instead of really taking responsibility for why I'm feeling this way. And I do know that so many of us, y'all, in this season, this has been such a crazy political season. And in this season where the rhetoric's high and it's everywhere you turn, and it has really pitted us against the other. I can even think of in the last month or two, because I wasn't processing well, hearing someone that I know and love say certain things that, is not the way I see the world or is not a way that I agree with. And I even noticed in myself that, like, oh, I don't want to feel this way towards someone that I love, towards someone that, I care so much about. And if we don't acknowledge it, like, oh, I'm feeling really stressed, I'm feeling really frustrated, I'm feeling really misunderstood, I'm feel, whatever it is, acknowledge it and decide on purpose how we want to show up. Is this how I want to show up to the humans in my life? Because these humans, you guys, on both sides of the aisle are humans God made that he loves. And I still want to be able to appreciate that and love that and see that. And it doesn't diminish my own thoughts. It doesn't diminish my own beliefs and how I want to show up and how I vote. But I think if we can learn to really process our lives as we go, to not let these things pile up, it will really give us the bandwidth and the energy and the creativity to continue showing up into challenging situations sometimes, obviously, the way we want, with our tenderness and our power and our love and our joy. And that is really what I want for myself. And I just noticed so much freedom and so much energy freed up when I am regularly dealing with my life, when I am regularly acknowledging what I'm struggling with, what stories does my brain keep telling me over and over about something that may or may not be true. And even if they're true, is that something that I want to focus on? Does that help me show up with love to the people in my life? I'm really constantly asking myself this. And so remember, every emotion you're willing to acknowledge and process, you get stronger and healthier and freer. And every emotion that you ignore, that you're unwilling to acknowledge and process, you get weaker and sicker and more captive to beliefs and ideas and emotions that you don't want to live by. So I'm asking you today, especially today, what are you feeling? Do some little journaling. Sit down and write, like, oh, I'm feeling really frustrated right now. Let me ask myself, what am I feeling frustrated about? Process through it. What does it feel like to feel that frustration? Maybe go for a walk and process through that and decide on purpose. Oh, when I think and feel this has me showing up in my life in a way that I don't love. It has me showing up as a victim. It has me showing up feeling like I'm at the effect of other people, other circumstances, when in reality, I can always and forever choose, no matter what, to show up in the loving, joyful way that I want to show up to every single part of my life. So I hope that gives you a little bit of fuel for fire today, that you can take really good care of yourself, that you can decide, look, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but here's what I do know I'm in control of. I'm in control of what I focus on, of the beliefs and thoughts in my own head. And are those beliefs and thoughts leading me to show up to love toward my neighbor? Are those beliefs and thoughts driving emotions in me that have me showing up the way I want? And I firmly believe there are no bad emotions. There's just emotions that want to be expressed. I believe that when I really sat with my sadness the other day, there was so much wisdom there, so much compassion there. Like, oh, of course I get sad sometimes. Oh, of course. And if you can learn to say that to your emotions, those difficult ones that feel hard to sit with, hard to be with, if you can learn to say, oh, of course, I feel this way, allow yourself to be where you are, allow yourself to process through it, and then it'll free you up to decide, is this really what I want to keep focusing on? Do I want to keep creating resentment toward this person? Do I want to keep reacting in a way that I don't love? You have so much more agency than you think, and you can exercise it anytime you decide to. Okay, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Love you so much. Be with those emotions.